Fann, the Preacher Man, and his sidekick Shanan Jones. Frank discussions of issues affecting the ATL, Fulton County, the state of Georgia, the nation, and around the world. And now, here they are, live and in living color, the team of Jones and Fann, the Preacher Man.
Well, welcome today to Straight Talk with yours truly, Greg Fann, the Preacher Man today, and my co-host and comrade and confidant, and when I say confidant, I don't know if it's my confidant. Well, anyway, Shanan E. Jones is not with us today. Shanan is dealing with his organization concerned Black Clergy of Atlanta and dealing with the issues that's facing our community. So he's not going to be with us today, but he'll be back with us on next week. But today's topic, we're going to have some very interesting topics today. One of the topics Shanan touched on the last week in terms of these classified documents. These classified documents, we'll have a clip from CNN News talking about these classified documents and what's going on now. They keep popping up. Now Biden, now Pence. What's next? So we'll be talking about that, and then we'll be talking about other things, and in particular talking about the Reverend Albert E. Love, the late Reverend Albert E. Love, and the pyramids to Selma, Alabama, each and every first Sunday, and it's called Bloody Sunday. We'll be talking about that. But right now we're going to have Miss C, and Miss C is going to bring us church news and much more information. Miss C.
Hey, Miss C here with your 3-minute news blast or more. Thank you, Bishop Greg. Thank you, Pastor Shanan, for allowing me this opportunity to pass along this information. How y'all doing? Okay, that's good. Anyway, the collaborative firm invites you to SMDO 23, the South Metro Development Outlook Conference, presented by Amazon. It's going to be held on March 8th. There's going to be many great speakers, and Michael Hightower is going to be the conference host. If you register now, you can receive the early bird special. You can log on to www.smdoconference.com. There you can see a whole lot of more information. You can see all the great guest speakers and just, find out what's going to go on at SMDO 23. The theme for the conference is South Metro, Transforming for the Future. New Zion Baptist at 2100 Abner Place in Northwest Atlanta wants you to share in their stewardship luncheon Saturday, January 28th, 2023 at noon. Dr. Craig White of Bethany Baptist will be keynote speaker. Reverend Jarius Dorsey is pastor. The 11th Annual Young Pastors and Leaders Conference will be held February 6th through the 9th at Brookland Baptist Church, 1066 Sunset Boulevard in West Columbia, South Carolina. Special guest preachers include Reverend Telly Lynette Gordon, Reverend Bertrand Bailey, and Reverend Charles Goodman Jr. Worship services begin at 7 p.m. During the day, from 10 to noon, there will be workshops conducted by Reverend James Jameson, Assistant Pastor of Brookland Baptist, and Reverend Ancoma Anderson, Senior Pastor of Welfare Baptist in Belton, South Carolina. To register and get more information, log on to www.brooklandbaptist.org. And Brookland is spelled BROOKLAND, Baptist.org. There's more. I just don't have time to tell you all about it, but you can find out about it on the website. That's www.brooklandbaptist.org. Now listen, I have 4 things I want you to do for me. That's to like us, subscribe to us, and those little buttons are right there on the front. And comment and share us. Let everybody know about Straight Talk News and Bishop Greg Fann and Pastor Shanan, because they're doing a great job, aren't they? Okay, well listen, that's all I have for now, and I'll see you next time, okay? And be good.
Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you so very much for your news and information. If you have news and information, make sure you send it in to Straight Talk News. That's Straight Talk News 1362@gmail.com. And if you have comments, you can also send them in to Straight Talk News at Straight Talk News 1362 at gmail.com. Again, like Cynthia at gmail.com. That's Straight Talk News 1362 at gmail.com. All right? Listen, I tell you, the event that the former Commissioner Michael Hightower is having, he has it every year with the South Metro, where he brings in leaders throughout the South area of south end of Georgia and Fulton County, DeKalb County, Clayton County, Henry County, brings all of them in, and then he brings in the regional person, Anna Roach, to talk about what's happening regionally in this area. And they discuss things that are very important about the plans for the future for South Metro, okay? So you don't want to miss that. If you're a business person or if you're a person that want to just know and getting to know what's going on in South Metro, that's the place you want to be. Do register and be a part of that conference, won't you? And don't forget about my brother Jared Dawson, and his great stewardship training with the Dr. Craig Oliver on that Saturday. Don't forget it. And all the training for young ministers, there's a training for you, and you ought to attend. And by the way, Bishop Lack is having a training at his church this weekend. We didn't announce that, since it announced that it's going to be this weekend at the Temple of Prayer, United Church of God, at 81 Sonoya Road in Fairburn, Georgia. You can call the church at Temple of Prayer in Fairburn, Georgia, and get more information about that training for young ministers and pastors. Well, we're going to get ready now, and we're going to hear a clip or see a clip from the CNN news people talking about the classified documents found by Mr. Pence, turned in by Mr. Pence, and also found by President Biden, and the contrast between Trump, Biden, and Pence. And we'll talk a little bit more about it on the other side.
Now, so Evan, this is getting really, really messy. What more can you tell us about these documents found at the former vice president's home?
Yeah, Victor and Bianna, this is very messy, especially for the vice president and everyone who's been handling these classified documents. The vice president's team was doing these searches out of an abundance of caution, in part because of what they had seen develop in the case of the President Biden and the documents that have been discovered not only at the Penn Biden Center, but also at his home. And they did these searches last week. They uncovered about a dozen documents, which they then immediately reached out to the National Archives to alert. They found documents that they thought might be also Presidential Records Act responsive documents. And so that's how this all got started. At about 9:30 p.m. last Thursday is when the FBI came to the former vice president's home in Carmel, Indiana, and took possession of these documents, about a dozen documents, as you pointed out, that have classification markings. Now, we don't know very much about the documents. We don't know what specifically they entail, the level of classification, but this is something that is now becoming a spiraling issue for the government, for the Justice Department, which is doing a review of this to see what these are, who owns this information, which intelligence agency owns this information, and to see whether there's been any damage done to national security. This is part of the standard process that happens when these documents are found in places that they're not supposed to be. Now, what we know now is that in addition to these classified documents, the vice president's team, the former vice president's team, has turned over 4 boxes of documents. They arrived here in Washington just yesterday, handed over to the National Archives. Again, this is just early in the process. We don't know whether the FBI and the Justice Department will need to investigate further, whether there are any other places and any other documents that could be missing.
House. Let's bring in CNN's Phil Mattingly. So the stories of mishandling, misplacing documents have been dogging the president. How's the White House now reacting to this?
You know, Victor, publicly, the White House is not commenting at all, making clear that this is an ongoing matter and they're not going to weigh in one way or the other. Privately, they are very cognizant of what's been happening over the course of the last several hours. And I think when you talk to people inside the White House, they recognize that there is a political element here in terms of having another example of the situation that has really kind of consumed the president and the presidency over the course of the last several weeks. One from a Republican vice president in this case that shows very clear parallels. And two, I think there's a sense that for Republicans that have been attacking the president and his actions while he was vice president or in the wake of his vice presidency on Capitol Hill, now they have to look at one of their own doing the same exact thing. And I think probably more broadly, look, White House officials, again, not weighing in publicly, making very clear that they don't want any part of an ongoing matter here. But they recognize the political salience here and the idea that when you compare two different vice presidents leaving, both of whom have said that they had no knowledge that these classified documents were in their possession or had been transferred to their property, those parallels are important to try and underscore, I think, a point that President Biden has been making over the course of the last couple of weeks. Now, how this plays out going forward obviously is an open question. But again, for a White House that has been dealing with this in isolation, for the most part, trying to draw a contrast between their predecessor, former President Donald Trump, this certainly is an example that very much aligns with how they've operated up to this point, which once again draws the contrast that they want to point out very regularly with where the former president has been on this.
All right, Phil Mattingly, stay with us. Meantime, lawmakers on Capitol Hill are now reacting to this discovery of classified documents at Mike Pence's home. For more on this, let's bring in CNN's Manu Raju on Capitol Hill. So, Manu, what has the reaction been thus far?
Well, a lot of members are stunned. They really are at a loss at how this is continually happening and wanting to get information. There's some questions that will be directed directly to the Director of National Intelligence, Avril Haines, tomorrow when she appears behind closed doors with the Senate Intelligence Committee. They have been asking for questions ever since it was revealed last year that Donald Trump had records at Mar-a-Lago. They renewed the requests of Biden leaders, Republican and Democratic leaders of that committee when it came to light that Biden had these documents, and now they're renewing that request again in the light of this aftermath with Mike Pence coming to light. And Marco Rubio, one of those leaders of the committee, said this will definitely come up tomorrow behind closed doors. But there's also questions about what else Congress can do and how these records appeared at Joe Biden's home, even records from the time as a senator, questions about how that emerged. I had a chance to just ask Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer about specifically what Congress should do about this in light of these concerns and in light of the fact that this keeps happening. Given that we have learned about Mike Pence having these documents, is it not incumbent on the Senate to investigate, to have some sort of oversight to ensure that the nation's secrets aren't being leaked out everywhere in people's private homes?
Senator Peters is looking at bipartisan legislation in terms of classified documents. I support his efforts. In the meantime, on the specific cases, the appropriate thing to do is have special prosecutor, and that's what's happening.
So Schumer is referring to an effort that was happening in the Homeland Security Committee led by Gary Peters, the chairman of that committee, to try to overhaul record-keeping laws, federal record-keeping laws. That effort is still taking shape, still coming to light. We'll see if it actually comes to pass. But lawmakers really at the moment trying to figure out exactly what happened here. Calls for an investigation on the Senate side, and of course the House Republicans already investigating what Joe Biden has done. We'll see how they press forward on the Pence matter as well.
Right, we're going to see how it's going to shape out. I tell you, man, there's so much going on in D.C. I mean, really, every time you turn around, it's this, it's that, it's this, it's that, it's that, and you know, and we're looking at, you know, let's talk about the contrast here. What's going on? All right, you got now Jim Jordan over the committee that oversaw setting up the insurrection committee. They're trying to strap that. To look into whether or not it was an insurrection. Maybe it was just people touring the Capitol. And it was crazy because there were so many of them who were being under investigation because of the insurrection. Now they're on the committee. That would do away with the January 6th committee. Then you have this now former president who did not turn in classified documents, who refused basically to turn them in after they were requested to turn them in. And so you had the FBI to have to seize the record, and then it was, well, that's unfair. They shouldn't have to seize them. Well, if you don't turn them in, what do? You gotta, if they're there, you gotta turn them in or they're gonna come get them, all right? That's just a fact. Let's not play games with that. Then you have now you have President Biden, and they say he had classified records. Now we don't know what the classified records were for Trump. We don't know what the classified record is for Biden. We don't know what they are for Pence. But they were classified records, and they should have been turned in. Well, okay. So But one of the things about the Democrats, though, that was unlike the Republicans, what the Republicans did, they did not advocate for Mr. Trump to turn in those records. However, the Democrats said, if Biden did it, we need to investigate it. We need to find out what's going on. How did he get them? Why were they still in his possession? They joined in the band with the Republicans to find out what's going on. And then now you have Mr. Pence, who now is turning in records that he found out through his lawyer that he had some classified records that should have been turned in. So, hey, the saga goes on and on and on. And now, what do you think about it? What's your comments or your opinion? And I want to thank Angela Brown for her comments about last week's program with Vincent Ford, the former senator, state senator Vincent Ford. Thank you, and for your comments, and others that you may have sent in comments. I did not see them, but if you do send in your comments, just send them to Straight Talk News at 1362gmail.com, and then we'll be able to read your comments. Just email us, okay? If you want to be on the program, we'd love to have you on the program as a guest to talk about whatever issue you may want to talk about. And you may want to talk about this very issue that we're talking about now. I don't know, but Shanan and I would love to have you to be a part. Thank you. And that's Straight Talk News. That's Straight Talk News at 1362 gmail.com. Let me do it right. It's Straight Talk News 1362 at gmail.com. That's Straight Talk News 1362 at gmail.com. And it'll be on the stream. You'll see it anyway. And now I want to talk about the late Reverend Albany Love. The late Reverend Albany Love. Everybody knew Reverend Love. Who knew Reverend Love? You had to love Reverend Love because he was a person who looked out for the least, the less, the lost, and the left out. Reverend Love formed a organization called Voter Empowerment Collaborative, and it was to help people to understand about the voting process, why we vote, the need to vote. And many people, even today, don't vote. So each and every year, the first Sunday in March, which is called Bloody Sunday, we took a pilgrimage down to Selma, Alabama. Reverend Love called it Liberation Day. It was Liberation Day for us as black people to fight for the right to vote. The late John Lewis, the late Reverend Hosea Williams, the late Reverend Ralph David Abernathy, Dr. Martin Luther King, James Earn, and many, many, many more who are unsung heroes and names we don't know, who stood up to fight to make sure that we had the right to vote. And see, one of the things that we're not doing is we're not talking about what happened, how it happened, and we're still fighting for the rights to vote. You got right now you have Senator Warnock who's talking about the voters' right bill, and he's continually pressing that. You have those legislators, those Congress people, some who are doing the same thing, that's pushing that effort for us to get the right to vote and to keep the right to vote and to strengthen the voter rights laws that we can vote, that we don't have all these impediments to vote. So it is important that we continue to fight in the efforts and the work of the Reverend Albany Love. And we're going to do that because we're going to Selma on the first Sunday, March the 5th. So get on board the bus. We're going to be leaving from the IBW building, 501 Pulliam Street at 6 a.m. And of course, you can get on the bus. The tickets are $65. We're going to the Legacy Museum. We're going to have food and eat, and we're going to go down and cross the bridge. As you know, that many people have seen the devastation in Selma after the tornado, and they need help. They need help. We have taken some food and supplies down there, along with the Atlanta Labor Council and the Law of Georgia Atlanta Labor Council and the State Fed of Georgia. We took out some supplies to make sure that people down there had some things to eat. The Pastor Grayson's church at Shiloh Baptist Church there in Selma, Alabama. But we're going down and being a participant in that march. And we want you to go with us. It's only $65. That's all it is, $65 to get you into the museum, to get you something to eat, and also to ride down and back. And your tour Montgomery, the home of Reverend Abernathy, the home of Nick King Cole, the home of Dr. King, and the late Vernon Jones. You'll see the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church. You'll see the First Baptist Church where Reverend Abernathy pastored. You will also see the state capitol where George Wallace stood on the steps and said it was going to be segregation forever, which he later changed that tune. But you will see all of that and much, much more. You don't want to miss this trip. Join us March the 5th. Now, the deadline to be a part of it is February 19th. To get your money in by February 19th. There'll be a flyer up there and tell you how to call Shanari Ferris and Sandra Williams. And of course, we'd love to have you to get on the bus and be with us as we do again get on the bus and walk across the bridge in memory of those who gave their lives for us to have the right to vote. Freedom Sunday, Bloody Sunday. All right? Liberation Day. Liberation Day. In the words of Reverend Love.
My name is Reverend Albert E. Love. I am the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Voter Empowerment Collaborative. We're a nonprofit, a nonpartisan organization, and our mission is to empower voters. And we empower voters through information, through inspiration, and through involvement.
The voice of our founder, the Reverend Albert E. Love, as we continue to work educating future voters of America and remembering Selma when it all began. God bless and keep strong. Now, as we get ready to close out the day, there's so many things that's happening here in Atlanta too. The things that we've seen with this group that we believe that's a part of Antifa fighting against the police and not having a training center out on Key Road. One officer get shot, one of the protesters get killed, protesters downtown, tearing up downtown. Atlanta is known for peaceful demonstration. Yes, we get our point out, we do march, we do demonstrate, but it's in a peaceful manner. We do not take lives, we definitely don't jump on the police and do those kinds of things because we need police. We need to have the protection of law enforcement. We don't need to do away with police. We don't need that kind of society. It does nothing but create and breed for more crime when we don't have those people who are dedicated to save lives and protect our community as well as our firefighters. So let's support our police officers. Let's support people in public safety. Let's keep working for peaceful demonstration. Let's keep working for standing up for what is right. Let our voices be heard. One thought just came to my mind. There is possibly going to be a bill this year at the Demon Dome. I call it the Demon Dome. Some call it the state capitol. I call it the Demon Dome because you got a lot of evil people down there doing evil things to good people. Evil things to good people. Yeah. All right. So they are probably voting on the issue of runoff elections. Should we or should we not have runoff election? I'm going to give my opinion. This is my opinion, like my opinion about the Republicans and the Democrats. People support Democrats and support Republicans. And of course, I'm about doing away with the two-party system because they're voting the party line versus what's good for the people, okay? So that's another issue for another discussion, another day. But I want you to think about this runoff elections. How much money is spent to have a runoff election? You have to have the election board to set up and get new ballots done and all those things. Candidates have to try to go back out and run another whole election, get monies to try to get their message out. And 9 times out of 10, if not 10 times out of 10, the person who won the first time when there's a runoff will win the second time. So in a 4-week period. So I think that for the cost and the time that's put in runoff, I think we need to look at that and eliminate runoff elections. Whoever's the highest vote getter wins the first time. Well, it's 51% or whatever it is, that number that they have, they win, right? We shouldn't have the runoffs. I'm for doing away with runoffs. That's my opinion. And I'll listen to what you have to say if you want to voice your opinion about it. I just don't think we need runoffs anymore. Okay? Now, as we get ready to close again, you know, I'm a preacher, you know, we got to have 3 closings. As I get ready to close again, I want to just say, you have a happy, blessed, safe week. And listen, tune in the next week to Nothing But Straight Talk with yours truly, the great Fann, the preacher man, and Shanan E. Jones. Take us out of here, Hal.
Straight Talk. Email Greg Fann, FFANN922 at Comcast.net or call 404-308-0795. Join us again for another episode of Straight Talk with Shanan Jones and Greg Fann, the Preacher Man.